Hey guys, welcome back. I've been playing around with the Keeping Cool collection from Rosie Studios, and one of the things that I sat down and did the other weekend was just have a bunch of fun playing with some papers and embellishments and making all of these kind of little embellishment clusters. But then I'm kind of stuck, like what am I going to do with these embellishment clusters? So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to find ways to use up these embellishment clusters. And the first thing I thought I would do is make a 12 by 12 layout. I don't think I've made a 12 by 12 layout all year. This might be one of the only ones. So I grabbed a photo from way back in the summer, and I'm going to make a really simple layout today. So because I've already created those embellishment clusters, it's kind of going to be a pretty quick layout to put together. But one of the things that I do want to do is keep the background of the layout a little bit more simple, a little bit on the simpler side. So I am going to use some white cardstock, but I do want to kind of mat that with one of the pretty pattern papers. And I really love the blue, so I'm going to use this kind of blue wave stripe color. It works perfectly with the clusters and the photos that I've got here. I did just trim a little bit too much of the white cardstock, so I'm going to take to that one. I'm cutting about a ½ inch off two sides of the white cardstock. And I am going to trim out the middle of this paper because I do really like it, and I'm only going to see such a tiny little piece around the border of it. No point wasting a whole sheet of pattern paper when you're not going to see it. So I guess I'm leaving about an inch around each edge and just trimming that out so I can use that on something else. And then by the time I go ahead and attach my white cardstock on here, you're never even going to see that there's no inside of the pattern paper. So I'm going to use a tiny little bit of tape runner just to adhere this into place for now, and then I'm going to more permanently adhere that with my sewing machine. Now I just run all of that around a couple of times just with some white thread. I did a terrible job of stitching, so hence the few times rather than one neat line of stitching. There's a few in there just to hide my messy sewing. And then I just pulled up the edges just to give it a tiny little bit of kind of texture. Now I am going to cut apart some of these alpha titles. I'm going to just create my own here. I've got Fun in the Sun, and I'm going to use Summer in there just so I can get a little bit more of that kind of blue color. And then my thought with the embellishment clusters was I was going to use 3. So that's going to give me my kind of 3 points of visual interest. I'm going to have one on the bottom left, which kind of like ties in my title. And then I want one at the top here somewhere and one on the right hand side as well. So I'm just going to kind of test out a few of those. I want ones that I kind of like the colors of that go with my photo, but also ones that have like some of them have these little titles on them, I guess, or little embellishments that have a sentiment on them, and I kind of want those to make sense. So it takes me a little bit of time to kind of audition the right ones. Eventually I get there and I decide that I'm going to kind of peel back some of these ones that have the titles on them and just kind of keep it a little bit simpler and use some of the ones that are a little bit kind of plainer. I want ones that have the colors that I like from the title that I've decided to use and the background, so some of that more, I guess, like indigo-y kind of blue, and these are the 3 that I've come up with. Now I'm going to add a little bit of chipboard behind my photo. I don't have any craft foam at the moment. Chipboard is a good alternative, generally free because they often come in little packages, so I just keep those separate. Plus it kind of helps eliminate some of the bulk, so I get a little bit of dimension, but it's not super bulky with a great big piece of foam in behind it, so I can just add a little bit of dimension without too much height. I am going to mount this photo on a couple of different papers, so I wanted to use the same background as the layout itself, hence why it was very handy to cut out the inside of the pattern paper. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of pink in there as well, because the embellishment clusters that I have picked out, there is all sorts of colors in there, but there is a little bit of pink, and I've got a pink in the title too. So that's basically my layout all done. I really just have to kind of work out where everything's going to get adhered, and there are a couple of like peeling of pieces that I'm going to have to do here. So I am going to peel off some of the glue from these embellishment clusters so that I can kind of layer the photo in and behind them. It's just to make sure that the cluster becomes kind of a part of that photo rather than just sticking down a photo and then slapping 3 embellishments on top of it. I want to find a way to kind of incorporate it all together. So one of the ways I'm going to do that is by, like I say, peeling off that sort of background paper of my embellishment cluster. And the second way I'm going to do it is to add a little bit more paper in behind here. So I'm going to add the same pattern paper in behind all 3 clusters. And the one on the left here is just going to be a little bit of kind of background paper for the cluster. For the second one on the right, I'm going to run it so that it goes down the whole length or the whole width of the photo there and actually joins those 2 clusters together. So it becomes kind of a joining element, again, making everything look a little bit more cohesive. So because I've gone ahead and added additional parts on here, I want to use my ruler to make sure that I'm getting that photo in the middle before I go ahead and put those clusters back on there. I did lose that one in the mess on my desk for a little bit, and I'm going to cover up. There's a car in this photo that is not our car. I'm going to use the embellishment as a way to kind of cover up that piece of the photo as well. I don't necessarily want that visible. Because I've got that chipboard under the photo, I'm just going to add a little bit of chipboard onto one side of that embellishment so that it's sitting nice and straight when I pop that on. I need to peel it up and move it back so I can just fit my title in here. I'm going to piece that in just one letter at a time. It does take me a little bit of time. I'm not going to make you watch all of that. Voila, through the magic of television, here we are, all done with my title. It's kind of like creating this really big cluster on the left, and then I've kind of got one on the right here. So my idea of having this visual triangle, it sort of gets a tiny bit derailed just because I have joined those 2 clusters sort of together. So it's almost like having a giant focal point on the right hand side, and then I've got one on the left hand side as well, and that's a little bit smaller. It is made a bit larger because of the title, so I'm going to add a couple of other little extra bits and pieces in here. So just to kind of, I guess, elaborate on those actual embellishment clusters, add a little bit to them and kind of overlapping again. So just to kind of make everything a little bit more, or a little bit less disjointed, I guess, is what I'm attempting to achieve. Now when I'm going through all of these embellishments, I'm kind of picking out ones that I like the color of, ones that are sort of relevant to the photo, I guess. We weren't actually on the beach because, to be honest, we were fully sick at this point of the summer. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on the beach, but we were tired of being at home, so we got in the car and went for a drive, and it was just what we needed, to be honest. A little bit of sunshine, a little bit of fresh air, and that beautiful view of the beach. Now when I was going through the embellishment pack, I found that little banner at the top there, and I thought that's the perfect way to kind of give me my third point of interest. So I'm going to create one giant cluster around here on the right. I've got the little one on the left, and then my wee banner at the top. So it just draws your eye in and around and all around the page. So I added a lot of kind of florals in here. They really are one of my favorite parts of the pack, and I thought just a tiny bit more relevant than adding things like the waves. And I added one umbrella because I just love how that kind of sticks out the top of the embellishment cluster there and kind of draws everything together. It's joining together my photo and the clusters, and just, I love it, to be honest. I just am putting on stuff that I love, which was half the point of making this layout. Just to give this little banner a bit of depth before I finish up the layout, I'm going to add a tiny bit of chipboard along here as well too, and just flatten down those edges of my stitched cardstock there so that it will sit nice and flat. I'm going to add a few little enamel dots in here because there are enamel dots already on these embellishment clusters, and then I can call this layout all done. So I totally inspired myself to find other ways of using these little embellishment clusters. This was the only one that I actually filmed though, so check out my Instagram if you want to see the other ways that I used my embellishments. Hey, thanks for watching today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I will leave the link to the Rosie Studio store below if you want to pick up this collection for yourself. Otherwise, I will see you again very soon. Bye.